There's going to be a new Expatriate Administration System, EAS, that will take place for 3 months, beginning from May to August 1, as the federal government says it is ready to clamp down on illegal migration in Nigeria. And some companies have been fingered to be part of those who are guilty of this. So the Nigerian Immigration Service was talking about how some companies try to distort, try to prevent the Nigerian Immigration Service from carrying out their function regarding assessing the immigration status of some of their employees who are expatriates. But what the government is saying right now is that there's going to be a 3-month grace period that will begin from May 1 and end on August 1 to enable all those who are illegal immigrants working in Nigeria to regularize their immigration documents so that they can continue to stay in Nigeria. If you started the show with us when we had the segment Something You Don't Want to Miss, so this story also came up then when Swift Aderito was talking about how some Oyibo people, meaning some foreigners, have begun to claim that they are indigenous of Ekiti State, because the Nigerian Immigration Service is carrying out some monitoring and is looking out for those who are illegal immigrants in the country. So let's look at illegal migration into Nigeria, how it happens, what are the security implications of this, what are also the economic implications of this, and how can it be corrected. Yes, people will want to come to Nigeria. It's a land of opportunities, particularly Lagos. You know, they say if you can't make it in Lagos, it means that you may not be able to make it anywhere because the population is here. The market is here, you know, so diverse opportunities, same with other parts of Nigeria. And we also have foreign companies, multinational companies that are operational here. So some of them have expatriate workers that they bring into Nigeria to carry out some jobs. Some of them are skilled workers that are here. But what is the immigration status of some of them? It may shock some people, including Nigerians, to know that it's not very easy to have a Nigerian visa. But if you must work in Nigeria, you know that you have to, you need to have your documents to be legal. That means you need to have a valid visa and you need to have a work permit for you to be able to work in Nigeria. But when people come in through other means, maybe through the land borders, how do we check them to ensure that we're not having people coming here who are undocumented, who we do not know, and some being involved in nefarious activities? Doc?
Well, I don't think it's a new development, and I think I have alluded to that earlier in the conversation, because the former Buhari administration attempted to do a clean up that system. So if we are still talking about that system of having illegal migrants in our environment, it does go to say that the operation that was done by the former Controller General of Immigration was not as effective as it should have been. Now, that takes me to another very important question, which is, of course, like people have said, that when the Chinese were thinking of their security, they had to build a very mighty wall around the state. And then, of course, with only one entrance. And they said in 100 years, China was invaded twice. And the people who came to invade China came in through the gate after giving some money to the security officers who were at the gate. And so it became obvious to the Chinese people that the problem was not the wall, the problem was not the people who were coming. There was a fundamental cultural trouble of some people who stays within an environment and then will be able to take something from somebody and close their eye and allow something that is not legal to happen. And I think that's where I really feel that we need to focus and zero on. These people who we call illegal migrants, how do they enter? They don't fly in with wings at night. They use our airports. Some use our land ports. Some use our seaports to enter into the environment. And again, it's also to look at it, which of course a lot of people have complained, which also need to work on. How to also simplify the process of people who genuinely want to come to Nigeria to come and work. That's another thing that we will need to talk about here this morning. Now, a third leg of this conversation is the fact that we're also seeing that these people are bringing their investment into Nigeria because they don't just come. They come through a company. And they need people, skilled manpower, to do some certain job. And of course, you cannot find those skilled manpower at home. And you remember last week we were talking about Tim Cook, who was saying that the reason why companies are moving to China is that they have enough manpower. And therefore, because of manpower need, who can fabricate very high-tech tools that the today technologically evolving market space required, companies prefer to go to China. Because what's used being in America, where you have only very few tool engineers, and then, of course, they're going to price you out. Then you have to go to China, where you can have an army of them who will do the job. And I think we also must see how we are going to invest in the education sector so that we can begin to develop people who can do some of all this technology. I told you a situation where, of course, you have to buy a Chinese machine, for example. You will need them to come and assemble it because they have the expertise and we don't have it. So we must, first of all, look at the root cause of this illegal migration and then address those root causes. That's the only way we can make a success. Because it's not a new effort, because other people before the current minister had tried their efforts about it, but it didn't work. The fact that it didn't work suggests that there are fundamentals that needs to be addressed. And until those fundamentals are addressed, you may likely be chasing the wild wind.
Talking about addressing the fundamentals, would one of them be the difficulty in accessing Nigerian visa? Could that be why we are having illegal migrants? Some persons will want to cut corners. Yes, that's one. But if it becomes too difficult to have access to a thing, does that not create the problem where more people would want to cut corners because even accessing it officially is very, very difficult?
Okay, so we at home, what are we seeing? What are we looking at? You know, sometimes you have Nigerians complain a lot. And I'm not beating Nigerians up for complaining because we deserve better as a people. And it is the responsibility of the leaders to create that ecosystem that will facilitate that level of development. So, Nigerians, there is this at the peak of the time where Nigerians were crying foul of kidnapping, banditry, terrorism, and how even some foreign climes like the United States of America will give out, read out. There's this statement that they will put out telling their citizens all around the world, do not go to Nigeria. Or if you go to Nigeria, there are some spaces or places that you need to avoid. Yes, travel advisory. There are some places you should go to. There are some places you should not go to. But go to the airports. You see them in droves coming into the country. And you'll be asking yourself, these same people where you say there's kidnapping, they kidnap white-collared people and they're demanding for money and all of that. They are coming into this place and these are business people. What did you see? What did they see? There must be something that they are coming for and they're coming to make their money here. But the thing is, sometimes in the aspect of illegal immigration, I don't know how long they spent to get the Nigerian visa. But it's an hurdle, and whenever they got it, they want to come. That's good, and I think the government should maintain that standard because we're not hindering them.
To make it difficult?
No, it's not to make it difficult. It's to make it pricey.
Really?
Something worth it. If the Nigerian jackpot from this place and is celebrating there, So they should celebrate it. They feel like, finally, I got a Nigerian visa.
Okay,
now,
let me ask.
Blessing.
I'm not cutting in. I'm asking
Okay.
you because you say you want to make it pricey or to make it like a prize at the end
Yes,
of the day
a
that we're
prize.
seeking.
Yes.
So do you think it's about that? Does it necessarily have to be too difficult? Do we have to create bottlenecks just to, in quotes, make it look like a prize? Is that what we need? Does that add value to us or create a problem? Are there bottlenecks that perhaps should be removed?
I do not say at this moment that because of the hurdles that one needs to go through to get Nigerian visa, that is hindering business development or hindering businessmen from coming into the country to do their business or from coming to carry out developmental activities.
But
no.
do you think it's a
But,
challenge?
and I don't think it is. I don't think it's quite. I don't think it's something that is a bottleneck. One of the critical things that Nigeria needs to do to open the space. I don't really think so at this moment in time. However, we have many manufacturing hubs in Nigeria, most of them owned by Chinese, by Pakistanis, and other people. The thing is, they bring in their workforce. Some of the management positions, the technical positions, they are brought into this country. From they are foreigners. Most of them are foreigners. So, and remember, there's an existing law that in the management cadre of any organization, a foreigner company that is owned by foreigners, the management cadre, there is a quota system that Nigerians are supposed to occupy. We need to have the relevant agencies to make sure that they check up these organizations to make sure that this quota is filled up by Nigerians. And if we are bringing foreigners in the guise of expatriates to come work, in the name of these expatriates are coming to work, and there is absence of anybody, or there's absence or there's scarcity of persons in that area who are indigenous people or indigenous company that do not have those skills. It's quite rare, and I would not say that to be in all cases. Now, recently, the Honorable Minister of Interior, Olubunmi Tunji Ojo, and one other minister were, sued together by a specific company. They were taken to court because there is this law that they are proposing at the moment that, look, we are in a bid to try and protect Nigerian professionals, and in defense of the local content law, we are going to be imposing a $10,000 fine or a $15,000 fine for the amount or the number of expatriates they are bringing into this country. And that fine is going to be for a year. It's not a fine, it's more like a fee that you need to pay for employing expatriates to come and work in Nigeria, most especially if you can find able hands of such people in Nigeria who have such technical skills, and you bring in expatriates, you bring them into this country because they are not coming through the name of the company. They do not go through the arduous task of filling some information that may be required individually, like you are requesting for an individual visa to come to a country to come and work. And they are pushing that law, and their intention was that we need to maintain the local content development law in Nigeria. We need to protect the professionals in Nigeria so that expatriates do not come and take all the jobs away. And this is similar to what President Donald Trump is doing in America.
No. They are two different things. And they are not similar at all. And I think we should put them into perspective. Take, for example, for a very long time, America has encouraged immigration through their visa lottery program to deliberately move in young, able-bodied men who will walk into America for free. And they open the door. Canada have done the same. Now, if you go to states like the United Arab Emirates, of a population of 10 million people, about 8.5 million are expatriates. The local is just 1.5 million people. Now, I don't have a problem with people coming into your space. You see, the issue here is the fact that sometimes we overblow our capacity we overblow our capacity and say we have the people.
Are you saying we're overrating ourselves?
Oh, yes. Sometimes we overrate because we talk about we have the people. We have the people.
We do.
Sometimes when you are looking for these people, you can't find them.
Okay, so is it numbers we're actually counting and not capacity?
Yeah. So yes, it's number of paper certification. People carry degrees all per down. Oh, we have produced 20,000 engineers, electrical engineer in 1 year. We produced 50,000 marine engineer in 1 year.
You are a good Nigerian doctor.
See,
you are a
so
good
we need
Nigerian.
Nigerians who are actually able to work in the marine sector. We need Nigerians who are able to build vessels and ships. We need Nigerians who are able to assemble and build cars. See, this is where we have to talk about developing capacity. Now, yeah, why I don't have issues with a whole lot of things we talk about. I was talking to somebody recently and said, look, Nigerians don't really realize where our problem started. That our problem started with the indigenization policy, which Obasanjo introduced while we had issues with share BP. And of course, by that action, they decided to take over all the companies. And we didn't have people with the right hand to run those companies. The miners left. The people who were running the airways left. The one who were running the electricity left. The one who were running telephony services left, and all of a sudden we became on our own. And all this infrastructure, we have run them down. So we must understand that while we are advocating that, yes, we need to build capacity, we also must know that there are other people, whether in Europe, whether in America, whether in Asia, are also requiring manpower from other regions to build their environment. My own is, if we have to build, it's not about people coming into Nigeria. It's also understanding that we must also be strategic and tactical in terms of who comes into Nigeria and what they are coming to do. That for me is where we need to actually leverage. Sometimes when you go to embassies and you see the number of queues of people who go there every day paying 50,000, 200,000 to seek appointments, and it's not even a guarantee that the visa will be given. And after you go there, they say they didn't give you, and they say you can appeal the case. That appeal is another money you pay. Can we be as organized so that even when people are going to come into our environment, even if it's only the money we are making from visa application enough, will also be enough. But then we must prepare the groundwork for some of all these things to work. But a fundamental factor, which of course is the first issue I raised, is the issue of the fact that people come into Nigeria, not because we don't see them coming, but because some people who are supposed to be the checks are compromised to a very large extent, and they allow this illegal immigration. Yeah, one of the issues also, which Father Kuka also raised in that the delusion of democracy, was the fact that when you look at the Singapore pay system, is the fact that Lee Kuan Yew deliberately put so much resource on the ground for their civil service and political office holders so that most people have enough to meet their daily need. You understand what I mean? Yeah. People have enough to meet their daily need. They are not struggling to go elsewhere. And then, of course, also make that you have a first-rate facility on the ground that we don't need necessarily to send our children abroad. I was eavesdropping on a man who was so angry yesterday, and he was complaining to somebody else that, look, he needs money right now, that the son is in Canada going to school. He paid $1,000 every month for a hostel. And then, of course, now in June, he will need to pay $18,000 for school fees. And I said, wow, my God. So how can we? He said, because I need to give my son a good start. I need to give my son a good start. Now, if this person is a public officer and he doesn't earn that kind of money, he must find ways to make that money. So, building first-class, world-class institutions, even at home, is something that we have to prioritize. We have to overhaul our entire school system so that all these things that are creating opportunity for corruption or kleptomaniac behaviors, we can take them away.
All right.
Okay, so this is it. I would want to respond to what Doc said, what Priya said, and what I think about the Nigerian visa being very difficult to obtain. So, as of 2024, it was reported that Nigerian visa is the 9th most difficult to access globally. Well, maybe for Pri, he may feel like, yeah, so that means we're very important. So it's not very easy for you to just come into Nigeria.
No, that's not what I meant.
Okay, but that's not what you mean. But what I think is that is not very good. So if we are needing or wanting investors to come into Nigeria, I'm not saying we should just throw the door wide open so anybody can come. There is a process to follow, and the visa process ensures that certain things are required or certain documents are required. And you must show proof of funds where you're going to stay. There must be a reason why you're coming into Nigeria. But there are some unnecessary bureaucratic processes that need not be there that we can take away. And another thing is the time it takes for that visa to be out or for the visa to be approved. Some persons may have completed the process, submitted every document necessary, but the waiting time is quite long. And within that waiting time, if, let's say, a company needs to bring in some skilled professionals to complete a task, you are delaying that task. You are delaying that job that has to be done while they are waiting for their visas to be approved. It is still not an excuse, though, for the companies to now bring in expatriates illegally or expatriates who are undocumented. But I think if we can do better by making the process, particularly the e-visa application, to be one that is not just seamless, but the time of approval doesn't have to be so long that you have companies, you have individuals who maybe want to just tour Nigeria. They may not want to invest, but maybe they want to come see Nigeria. So there are lots of sectors that will benefit when we have people coming into Nigeria. While we're making the visa approval a very strict process, we also forget that we have a porous border. So those who are close to us by territory, who share boundaries with us, they have very easy access into Nigeria. It more or less seems like it is those who even want to come in legally that are facing the hurdle. Those who want to come in illegally don't really face much hurdle because the borders are manned, but do they deter people from coming in illegally? If you live in any of the African countries close to Nigeria, you know how easy it is to come in. We even find some of them around who are artisans, some of them who are doing menial jobs around. You know for real that these persons do not have the permits to work here. They may not even own a passport, a national passport, let alone have the visa to be in Nigeria. But they're everywhere, there are many. So why do we leave the borders to be porous, but those who want to come legally, those who will bring in investment, we are making it difficult for them? That's on one side. And on the other side of the human resource, our capacity, Doc said that we're overrating ourselves. Well, I want to agree with that to an extent. Because we have a large population and we have a significant percentage of that as young people, we tend to think that we have the resources, but we may not really have it. Because if we do, I know there is local content, that local content policy that provides that companies must have a certain percentage allotted to the local individuals. But let's talk about capacity here. Do those individuals have the capacity to fill those roles? You were talking about a certain percentage that should be allotted to the locals when it comes to filling top echelon positions.
Yes.
Yes, we still have that as a challenge. Look at the oil industry, for instance. The oil industry has been here for a very long time, but do we have the capacity? Even our own Dangote, when he set up his refinery, brought in lots of expatriates. At least he should want to cut costs by employing many people here instead of bringing in expatriates. So he must too have faced that constraint of finding certain skilled workforce in abundance in Nigeria as opposed to what you find in China, where if you are looking for a large pool of skilled professionals, skilled people who will do a particular job, you find them in abundance. So companies find it cheap to just move their factories over there because the skilled workforce is there. So I think we need to now be talking about skills development a lot more in Nigeria, doing a lot with skills development, because I think that companies will want to cut costs. They will want to reduce their overhead. If they can have the skilled professionals or the skilled workforce at a cheap rate within the country, they will want to go for that rather than bring in expatriate that they will pay in dollars, expatriate that will cost them more. There's the side of ownership too, where multinationals or foreign companies will want to protect their stake and have their own people there. But I think sometimes it has to do with the availability of skill too.
Right,
Okay.
why.
All right.
Why the border is porous,
Yes,
and there's difficulty in getting this thing.
yes,
They call it the psychology of rent seeking.
okay,
So what you do is you create chaos in the normal process so that people patronizes the abnormal. So it's deliberate. That's why I'm saying that, you see, beyond the rhetorics, we must also look at the intentions in the heart of people who do some certain things. Because if you make this process, which is formal, straight, everybody go through it. Those illegal things that is coming in here, say. So, but when you make that place complex, and people are considering the time, the resources that is going to be wasted, waiting for the right process, they will not seek rent. So what they do, they create a confusion. So you're not looking, if you are desperate, you are looking for express. And then, of course, you have to pay express for somebody to help you facilitate so that you can get something. And that's why you find in most of our institutions, even including the reverse court system in Nigeria, you find touts everywhere around them. If you go to our airport, you see touts around. If you go to our immigration, you see touts around. If you go to our custom, you see touts around. Because we deliberately want to make the system chaotic so that people can be coming from the back door. And I think these are not things. So which airport do you go to in Africa, even not Africa, I'm talking West Africa, that you see the kind of massive people who have nothing to do with the airport that are hanging around? So it's the psychology of rent seeking. And that is the why.
Okay, thank you. Now, the thing is, I don't believe any argument that says Nigerians are overrating themselves, maybe because of our population. Nigerians have shown competencies across board in all manner of endeavors. If we are talking about tech, we know of Nigerians who built some softwares in this country and even payment platforms and sold for over $200 million. That was bought by another global tech giant. We are aware of Nigerians who did that, and that's just one. We are aware very well that Nigerians are even bailing the cat when it comes to tech and fintechs in Africa. Little wonder we have the position that Africa itself and the African Union has given to us. Now, I have no doubt about that. Recently, between 2012 and 2023, about 11 years apart, the Nigerian Navy has built about warships, about 3 warships. So the Nigerian Navy has built about 3 warships, one fuel barge, 1 water barge, 1 houseboat, and 6 agricultural boats. That's in 11 years space. The Nigerian Navy has that capacity to build that ship. And if we are to understand what comes with building warship, it also includes building the technology that will drive the instrument of war, manipulate the instrument of war, wield that instrument of war by using that ship itself. Now, if it's in agriculture, that's an industry in itself. And the Nigerian Navy is showing competencies. You're laughing. I think you agree with me.
I don't even know why I'm smiling. But let me let you think.
It's showing competencies in that regard. So, and I want you to know, I also want Doc to know that the way sometimes Nigerians can hide behind some organizations, to jackpot out of this country, that's the way foreigners too, who have establishment here, will hide and bring in some of their expatriates from their own countries to come and work in Nigeria. And some other expatriates, or in the name of expatriates, who are coming into, there are laws we need to protect. We are not saying do not come. Of course, Nigeria is open for businesses to come on. That's what Nigeria wants. The current administration wants that done because our drive for foreign direct investment and all of that. But the thing is, there are laws we need to regulate. We don't need to make our country a dumping ground. As we speak, I always reference Donald Trump, even though Doc said it's not the same thing. He's accusing Venezuela. He just imposed a secondary tariff in Venezuela. Why? Because he felt that whoever, even people that are going to be buying oil from Venezuela, he is going to impose a tariff on them because he felt Venezuela is part of the Latin American clans that are bringing in hooligans into the United States. That's just part of it. So now, if people are coming to the United States, the president wants them to be economically beneficial to the United States and not to constitute nuisance in the country. And even at that, he is even trying to protect some of the employable positions so that American first can really take root in the country. If the current administration, through the office of the Ministry of Interior, is also paying attention to that and looking at that, I think it is a good thing to protect Nigerian professionals so they do not become moribund or idle without having anything to do, while we see foreigners who just come in to take their jobs, and we have capable hands who can take care of that. We also have the local content law to defend that. We make sure that these companies and these organizations follow it to the latter. Let me bust your bubble. There are some foreign organizations in this country that employ Nigerians, and they do not pay the Nigerians pensions. Even though we know that there are Nigerian organizations that equally does that too. But foreign organizations employ Nigerians, because I've had that experience. The Lagos state government and the Federal Inland Revenue Service had to be coming to that organization where I was working at that particular point in time to make sure that they start paying pension to the staff. And that whenever they come, the expatriate or the white people, no, the Chinese will leave the organization and tell the Nigerians who are in the executive, who are in the management position, to go and respond to the Federal Inland Revenue Service, to the Lagos State Inland Revenue Service and or the PENCOM officials, to go and respond to them. And they did that for quite a while, and the government refused to back down until they allowed the staff of those organizations, they started paying pension to those organizations. And sometimes this Nigerian staff who are working for this foreign organization can suffer some form of accident. And they do not take care of they just leave those guys. Probably they work in a manufacturing hub, they manufacture slippers, they do some sort of manufacturing, and they do not attend to them, the equipment for them to work. And when they sustain injuries, or probably one of the machines cut off their hands or their legs, no hazard allowance, and they are forgotten that way. There is no government authority to look out for these people. Even the local government, as a journalist,
that has to do with our labor laws.
Okay, that's what I want to address.
Labor laws are implemented.
That's what I want to address. Sometimes you go there as a journalist and you start asking questions. And because they saw that, they've seen that, you are getting somewhere productive, the community itself might come and ask, our other children are still working in this factory. If you say you want to take the factory to court because one of our sons in the community lost an arm or lost a leg, the company might shut down, and majority of our children who work in this factory will go without job. So these are the little things that the Ministry of Interior and the government should begin to address. Because of that advantage, that loophole is not something that we should permit. It's not to shut out foreigners that do not come, but there must be and we must draw the line. You're bringing in foreigners to work. They fill in that specific position, the quota. Nigerians will fill in that position of the quota and the management level. And we also need to look at it. If there are Nigerians that can take care of this task, why do you need to import foreigners? But if you're going to import foreigners, you will have to pay $10,000 at the end of the year.
The question is, anybody, anywhere,
has the right,
needs the cheapest of labor. I don't think these companies that you are referencing, that is just because they want to pack people, no. And these people that we are talking, that's what I'm talking about. We're looking at it. As an employer, you are looking at the work culture of a people. You are looking at their competence. I told you, when you give a Chinese to come and work, they are working because the work culture is massive.
But is it just about work culture?
Oh, it is. It is important. With a single T like this, they are working like machine. And some people you also have that they are in here, of course, they are in break. Some of them are lying down at the machine. And are not getting the productivity that you need. There's a reason why these guys are bringing expatriates to fill in some of this space. That's what I'm saying. You see, we cannot continue to say we have built aircraft, we have built warship, and yet we are begging foreigners to give us a ship to fight. What kind of argument is that one? See, let's call spade a spade. You see, we like to arrogate to ourselves so many things. And that is, there's nothing wrong to say, I don't know. Somebody should help me. Most of those things that we are talking about, and I've mentioned to you times and time without number. Do you want us to take a research to look at the process of those ships made and see who actually made those ships?
Are they seaworthy?
So let's leave those conversations that we have. We need to develop capacity. It's important. It's important. If we don't even need to work for those companies, why can't we create our own companies that are doing the work rather than relying on them to employ us? If we have the capacity.
One of us created the company and still
yes, because he needed people who will be able to do the work. So what are we talking about? We're talking about that we need to deliberately. I saw a little girl who was talking on a TikTok on this ranting 10 about 2 days ago, and he said, look, people are not even ranting about throwing away our curriculum that is useless. How useless is it? Somebody read the computer science, even from private university, and doesn't know where a hard drive is on the computer. So let's not deceive ourselves. We need to invest hugely on human capital development. It's important. We cannot overemphasize that one. We need to invest in human capital development, and this is why it is important. You see, why I said American immigration issues and ours not the same is simple. Because that one was politics, because the Democrats deliberately opened the window for them to come in. And there was a purpose for it. So he sees the election in it, and they say, you are compromising our security. So that is Democrat-Republican war. And what we're talking about here has only politics in it. It has purely productivity as its driver. That Chinese people have companies here, Indian people have company here, Lebanese people have company here, and everybody is looking for everywhere to see a competent hand to drive his process, not just to bear liability.
Well, let's even look at that issue of competence. Let's use the construction industry as an example. Road construction specifically. So you find that a road construction contract has been awarded to a foreign company. So many of the field laborers or the field workers are Nigerians who would carry out the manual labor, who will be on the site. And then you find a supervisor who obviously is not Nigerian, is a foreigner. And you're watching to see what the person or the supervisor is doing. And sometimes, well, you can't really see the actual work other than the supervision. Okay, you don't do this way, you do that. But those who are really carrying out the task is or are Nigerians. So that brings me to the question: is it really a thing that in several sectors or area we don't have the competency, or there is a deliberate ploy sometimes to ensure that those who are at the top echelon in certain organizations are of the nationality of the owners of that organization, not really because you won't find or you can't find a competent Nigerian, but it's more about ownership, maintaining the stake, keeping the technology in-house, or
I think it's beyond that, because you see, there's ratio for sand and cement. Somebody needs to know it. There's a pressure on piling on the road. Somebody needs to know it. And even the benefits of looking at job and quality done, you can compare the one that is given to local contractors and the one that is given to foreign contractors that are supervised by local foreign people, and the one that is supervised by the foreigners. So when you look
sorry,
at the quality,
just to ask, when you look at the quality and you
Yes.
find that the one done by the foreign company
Yes.
is better,
Yes.
and the one done by the local company is not as good, would it be that the local company is not because they don't have the competence, but they chose to have weaponized incompetence just because they want to save more money as a result of corruption?
No. Beyond saving more money. Beyond saving more money.
So it's an actual incompetence issue.
Yeah, beyond saving money, it's not about money. And that is why you see, if you want to do a very good job and a job that is going to last, you have to find a foreign company to give it to, because of course they have the expertise. So we must not trade around this. The truth of the matter is that we need an institutions that are working. And I think that is why we must begin. And I think, and I have said it several times, the starting point for any revolution to happen is the intellectual base for that revolution. So if the intellectual or the philosophical background is not solid, a revolution cannot take place. So whether it is a political revolution, economic revolution, or industrial revolution, for it to happen, there must be a strong intellectual base to these issues. And I think this is why we're talking about it. There's nobody who has money to train his child today that want to train in this place. Who would deliberately say, okay, I want my child to learn something, and it is this place.
Why?
Why are we preferring the schools outside? So these are the questions.
Well, that could be because of strike, and it's also become a status thing.
No, if I just not just status, beyond status. Beyond status. We must accept our reality and understand some of the things that we do here.
But you trained here, Doc.
And the challenge is that, yes, we train here, I agree, to a very large extent. But you see, the input that you get from the outside is far more than what you get in our. So these are the realities that we need to address, to see how can we solidify, just like the China did for 100 years. They made plan to deliberately overtake the West in terms of building their, individuals. And there are two factors to this which I have mentioned while we started this issue. Is that one of the reasons why our even personnel, some of them may be very corrupt. Because if you pay peanuts, you get only markings for workers. So we have to address the wage issue, which is critical. That when people have to spend their energy, hard-earned money to get a certification, we must pay them very well, if they are well trained. And I have used the Singapore model, that you pay your expatriates and then your locals, and ensure that no other person can hire them because you are paying so well. So we must infuse that into our conversation. But fundamentally, I feel that it is not a shame if we don't know to say, I don't know. And somebody who knows can actually come around to help you. That is how UAE was built. Americans, the police in UAE was built by the British police, specifically. And they were in charge. And Emiratis were seconded to understudy them. So it's just like build, operate, handover. So there's nothing wrong. But we have to tidy up those agreement ends so that when people are coming in to help us grow capacity, our locals can learn from them. And then with time, they can begin to fit in that shoes.
Okay, so the issue, it is a well-known fact that even when we start talking about issues of capacity, some of the Nigerians who have been given these contracts to execute, and it was discovered, or Nigerian company or Nigerian organizations, that it was discovered that it was not as best, or when it was evaluated and assessed, it didn't meet up to the standard that is required. Some of them had gone through training in most of these companies abroad. In some of these companies, even some of the organizations that are here, foreign organizations that are here that carry out this training. Now, if we begin to talk about the competencies of Nigerians, whilst we know that human capital development is a must and thing that must not be, there is no getting there. It's a continuous process. We also need to know that Nigerians have proven themselves capacity. There are countries in this continent of Africa that a Nigerian judge, not one, not two, was in charge of completely writing and developing their legal system. Countries in this continent of Africa, and that to be their chief judge, chief justice in the country, and the Nigerians were understudied and they left. These are well-known judges in Nigeria that have created the name for themselves. So once we begin to look at the balance and say, oh, we need to look at.
I like when you always stand history on his head.
You like when I stand history on his head? How can I do that? Why will I do that? Why will I stand history on his head?
That's not a compliment.
No, that's not a compliment, dog. How would I stand history on his head?
I always like when you stand history on his head. You see, you must understand some of all these things. Yes, we were there before. And I said that on Monday. That the Vice President of India in 1972 said they were looking up to Nigeria for leadership for the non-aligned world. They were deliberately looking for. And so that was when the Technical Aid Corps started, which we are referencing. So the era of Technical Aid Corps, when Nigeria had a lot of well-trained people, in those days, people were coming from America, from Europe, to come study in University of Ibadan. Those days. But those days are no longer here. And those men that you are talking about, they have all retired. And some of them are not even living anymore. So what I'm saying is that we must understand the reality we face today. Those days, you find that we didn't have too many of them, but you have quality comes out from what was being produced. But you also go to look at who were those people there. Take, for example, the political science department. We have the University of Ibadan, William Green was not a Nigerian. Richard Joseph was not a Nigerian. And that's why I said to you that many people feel that the day in 1976, when Obasanjo came with the indigenization policy, that we started to nosedive into the abyss we find ourselves right now. That's the point I'm making. And so you must look at it historically. So we cannot use something that happened in 1960 to now be justifying what we have in 1980. Which country right in the world that you are thinking that you are going to do a justice system for, when your justice system is failing?
Okay, so I'll pick up from where you have left off, Doc. So, Pere talking about a Nigerian judge overhauling or being consulted to overhaul the justice system of another country, and Doc,
who were just coming into independence at that time.
Okay. Even today, we still have Nigerians who are exceptional abroad. So there's the environmental factor there too. Not as if we don't have competence enough. There are areas where we have competence, but environmental factors will suffocate that competence or make that competence not be seen. There's also the wage factor too. So people want to do the work commensurate to their wage. They may have the competence, but because they feel that the reward system is not sufficient, or is not commensurate, they would rather do shoddy jobs. But when they move out of this environment where they feel the compensation is adequate, then they bring out their best. And two, there are other factors that may hinder us from actually getting true competence. Do we even know what we're looking for sometimes?
Yeah, but
do we even
Blessing,
have a competent way of evaluating competence?
You interviewed Dr. Sunday Adelaja.
Yes.
And he told you, when he got to Russia, that when he saw the environment to learn alone, he told himself that if he didn't succeed here, it means his cost.
Yes, there is that.
Now, that is the point that I am actually emphasizing. We need to invest. And I said it, politicians don't think investment in human capacity building because they see that the gain cannot be immediately seen. If we must get out of this place where we are talking, this table where we are talking, we need massive investment in our educational institution, research institution.
Yes.
And that is the only way we can pioneer technology, not just consume technology. Because what we're doing right now, which of course Oga Priye is calling competence, is that we are consuming other people's technology. But we need to be pioneers of technology.
Priye, you are in it today.
We have executed competence in other sectors that doctor is refusing to acknowledge.
Okay, I don't think doctor is refusing to acknowledge. I think what he's saying is that there's a whole lot that can be done. So rather than us focusing on the numbers that we have and seeing the numbers as strength, we should be creative in utilizing the numbers by ensuring that they are well equipped with the right skills to competitively actually take over the market. India is doing a lot in terms of labor outsourcing. They're actually the #1 when it comes to labor outsourcing. So we have the population as well. We can focus on human capital development. So, you know, there's a level a particular thing becomes so obvious that even the blind cannot deny. So when we have that capacity built, for the foreign companies or the multinational companies that would, for many reasons, want to prefer expatriate, if they find that the labor is here, the skilled workforce is here in abundance, at a point, they can't deny that fact. They just have to use the labor.
So we'll be looking for it elsewhere. Yeah.
I think that's the point that Doc is making. I want to
add it will be cheaper to use, really.
Yes. Imagine if Dangote, all those expatriates that Dangote refinery had to employ, if many of them were of Nigerian nationality, then it means that more benefit for the Nigerian economy because they have families who are dependent on them, so the money would spread around. This talk about having a new expatriate system beginning from May 1 was done when there was a meeting with the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association. So let's just use this medium to appeal to the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association and also the Ministry of Labor and Employment to actually scrutinize more what happens with Nigerian employees in foreign companies, even in local companies. The rights of Nigerian workers should actually be protected, and the working conditions should be fair, should be conducive for workers, where they are supposed to be provided protective equipment to ensure that they do not become victims of hazard. They are protected from the hazard. That should be done. And when hazard has happened or where hazard has happened, then there should be compensation as duly stated by the law. We have a labor law that we should ensure that that labor law is implemented to protect Nigerian workers. Wrap it up here and just say to those who have come into Nigeria irregularly or illegally, yes, you have 3 months period to actually regularize your stay in Nigeria, your immigration status, because the Minister of Interior says after that, it will no longer be tolerated. And lastly, to those who are at the border, the Nigerian Immigration Service that man the borders, ensure that while we're also doing it on the other side for companies and for those who want to invest, people do not just stroll into Nigeria without passport, without work permit, and some of them take to illegal means, take to evil things, take to acts that compromise our security. Let's also ensure that we cover that aspect.